We are back on the FloTrack podcast at gmail.com. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Lincoln Shrike to recap the World Half Marathon Championships. We're not going heavy on cross country. That was a Gordon day. Lincoln day. We go international here. How are you, Link?
Yeah, I appreciate getting the international day for myself. I feel much more worldly than Gordon is, so I think it's appropriate. But I'm doing okay. I'm doing pretty good. Even though my assured pick for the World Half Marathon Championships did not win. It seems to be a trend. So we'll get into that. Mr. Cheptegei has maybe lost his World Athletics Athlete of the Year trophy. Mondo Duplantis took the title as Jacob Kiplimo got the victory. So we can get into all of that. But I was surprised with the result on the men's side.
Yeah, after anointing him the, quote, heavy favorite, or, quote, almost immortal lock, or, quote, I bet the lives of my entire family on Joshua Cheptegei. Lincoln's pick all fell apart. Some of you might be tuning in. You might be thinking, hey, these guys are going to talk about the Saweed Nasser news. But it just happened. So we're going to wait till we digest it, till we analyze it. And also, as Gordon reminds us, guys, there's nothing going on between now and December. So we need to space things out a little bit, let it breathe. Also, tomorrow will be a Gordon and Lincoln episode. And Gordon on whereabouts failures and filing failures is that's top notch. So it's very
that's
good.
worth the price of admission if there ever was one. That's worth a download for sure. I can't wait for that. We'll have to send him the definitions and the rules, and give him some tutorials before we start tomorrow at 9 a.m. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, maybe I'll email him some this is what Kevin thinks, so he can just read it. Because by the time we get to Thursday, that'll be too late. We'll be on to something else, or we can make it a two-parter. These World Half Marathon Championships, I thought were pretty fun. The races were entertaining. They were fast and tightly packed together. Let's do the men first, because that gives us the opportunity to review your Cheptegei pick before going any farther on in the show. What happened, Lincoln? What happened to the world record holder? Is it time to panic if you're a Joshua Cheptegei fan?
I did enjoy some takes afterwards that says, Joshua Cheptegei, 5,000 and 10,000 meter world record holder. Is he even the best runner in his country, though? I enjoyed some of those. I thought it would have set up perfectly for him because it was slow, slowish, 14, 18, I think, through the first 5,000 meters. Very, very pedestrian for this quality of a field. He was up there early, obviously, when it was that slow. He never looked entirely comfortable to me. So I just have to think the unfamiliarity with the distance and the quality of the field, both of which I underestimated, really, really affected him. Now, could it have been the 10,000, the 26:11 world record 10 days before? Could that have had something to do with it too? Sure. But I tend to think he was fresh and just thoroughly outmatched by guys who had more experience. You look at Kiplimo and you say, well, he's only run one half. Maybe that was enough for him, and it was just a very, very good day for the 19-year-old. But Cheptegei looked like a guy who was running his first half marathon. Fourth is not anything to be ashamed of, but I underestimated the need for him to have experience at the distance, despite the fact that he's run fast at 15K, he's run fast at 10K on the roads, and obviously 5K on the roads. This was not an easy course to make your debut at. It was a fun course. I think you texted me like this was a cool course. I mean, it went along the ocean. It went through tight little windows of brick portions of the road. There were hairpin turns. I think that was maybe tough for him as somebody who I would think is a rhythm runner, a track runner, as you would normally think of being a rhythm runner. This course broke your rhythm quite a bit, and maybe that had all added up to the fact that it just was going to be hard for him to win in his debut. But it's not taken away from Kiplimo, who looked incredible all the way to the finish line, and Candy, who was kind of the instigator of the late charges that dropped Cheptegei out of contention. Those two guys were really, really spectacular.
Cheptegei hasn't run this year around people, and when you watch the race back and he's in a pack, it just looked strange. He's only been paced by people in these fast record attempts. That probably was a bit of an adjustment, in addition to the fact that the distance was entirely new to him and he was running on tired legs.
Yeah.
I think if you didn't have the weird expectation like you did that he was going to blow away this field, and you say Joshua Cheptegei is going to run a 59:21 in his first half marathon on that course,
Yeah.
you'd probably say it was a good result, but now he's a victim of his own success at this point, to where we think,
Yeah.
okay, 5K, 10K, he can just keep making that next step up and he's going to have no equal just because he was so good in those races on the track this year. I think you would have liked to have it. I think it would have been a bonus. What
Yeah.
I'm interested in now is Kiplimo going to be his number one rival in the 10 and the 5? Because if this guy's this good at the half marathon, and we've seen what he can do in the 5, is he number 2 right now in the world in the 5 and the 10, do you think?
I think he has to be. We didn't see a ton from the guys who were actually contending in the 5,000 in 2019. Mukhtar Idris, I don't think ran very much. Barega maybe ran a hair, but he wasn't a big factor in this 2020 truncated season. But I think Kiplimo, the fact that he's run 7:26, 12:48, and now 58:47 in a race that wasn't on 58:47 pace from the beginning, and how strong he looked. Yes, absolutely. We said this stuff before he dominated the World Half Marathon Championship. I mean, I dominated as a stretch, but just I lean that way simply because he never looked really fatigued. I mean, Candy's got much more like a workman's type form, and he was clearly feeling it. I mean, Kiplimo, his head does not move the entire time. He's just like focused and like on a swivel. Yes, he is his. If Cheptegei's, the guy who advanced the most in our understanding of the distance races, Kiplimo is second behind him. I mean, Kiplimo had a fantastic season that we would be raving about if not for the fact that Cheptegei broke 2 Bekele records and then ran 12:51 on the roads. Kiplimo is I know we can get kind of obsessed with ages, but Jacob Kiplimo is younger than Jakob Ingebrigtsen. This is a guy who's going to be a factor for years to come. I don't know what his best distance is. I mean, if you meet somewhere in the middle between the half and the 5K, you'd say, oh, the 10K is a good one. I still think Cheptegei has the advantage on the track by virtue of his 2 world records and his more experience. But yeah, Kiplimo is only going to get better being how young he is. And now he's won the world half, got that confidence. I assume he's going to stay on the track because of how young he is. Yeah, he's going to be a huge factor. I mean, we already saw him challenge him in cross country too. He got silver back in 2019. So this guy could beat him. We on the track. Obviously, he beat him in the world half. He could take him to task on the track, and that's not something I would have thought I could say coming into this race.
You mentioned Jakob Ingebrigtsen. I think he also is going to be in contention in the 5,000 and then 10,000. Ronix Kiprutu, we haven't heard from him much in the back half of, at all in the back half of 2020. He of course ran that 26:24 in January. Throw those guys in, and you basically have I think that's all the players that we think. Mohamed, I think, Paul Chalimo in the 5K, obviously, but he's raced against them before, Cheptegei, that is. I'm interested to know, like, this is the recipe for beating Joshua Cheptegei. You obviously need a deep field, and you have no lights, and you have just a straight up race, and then you see what happens from there. Again, it's not him running bad. It's just there was just a very, very deep field. Again, not his distance, not his primary distance, especially when you compare it to someone like the Candyman there, Kipawat Candy, who's like a half marathon specialist, I think you could say at this point. A whole different story going in the 5,000 and 10,000 and tango with Cheptegei. But I'm very interested to see Cheptegei's early season 2020 races in the Diamond League. Usually I throw a lot of those out, but I think with Cheptegei, I think they actually matter. What he decides to run and his results in those races, I think, are going to be really interesting to see in 2021.
Yeah, like you said, it's always tempting to kind of throw those out, particularly in the 5,000, just because they're going to, a lot of times they're outside 13 minutes, and it's just kind of it's basically a 400-meter race, wrapped up in a 5,000 meter pomp and circumstance show. It's not necessarily indicative of who the best true 5,000 meter runner is, but I think with Cheptegei it'll be a little different. This doesn't, I mean, maybe it knocks him down a hair from like he was about to reach Eliud Kipchoge's stature, and now it's like, okay, he does have some things of which he's not going to be perfect at right away. But it doesn't take, I know I said Kiplimo can contend with him, and on a very good day for Kiplimo and maybe an off day for Cheptegei, he could beat him at the 5 or the 10, but I still think Cheptegei is going to come out next year red hot on the track and be a dominant force, because he's just so much stronger. Again, I mean, I don't think he's going to have races where he's going to wait and make it a 13 flat race, even in a Diamond League. I think he's going to come out and try to run in the 1240s and beat guys soundly. Maybe he doesn't do that. He didn't do that in this half marathon, but that's just a whole different situation. I don't think that was a race to try to go from the gun on that type of course in your first effort, but on the track it'll be a different story. It will be something to watch in the Diamond League, because you're right, he's was so much better as far as time than the rest of these guys, that all of a sudden, if he's kind of going back to the 2019 version of himself, which is good but not like separating himself from the pack in a tactical races, then it's like, oh, that opens up all these possibilities, and maybe the world record holder is not completely unbeatable. But I would expect the opposite. I think he's going to come out and be a force and be winning all these Diamond League races and be the dominant guy he's shown he can be on the track.
Yeah, is he going to do that though by running from the front, or is he going to try to practice some tactics? Is he going to practice some fast closes where it's at 13 minutes, or all season is he going to be trying to hit 1240s and then do the same thing when it comes time for Tokyo? I just think that's a tough ask to run off that many really, really quick times in a row. Now, we could go back to the previous era, and Paul Chelimo mentioned this when he was watching the world record with us. It used to be back in the day, those championship races were pretty quick. Look at Bekele's performances in world championships and Olympics. There's some fast times in there. There's no rule that says they have to dawdle, but I'm just looking for any clues or hints early on in the season next year as to what he decides to do when it comes time for the championships. Is he gonna run it like a Timothy Cheruiyot or Sifan Hassan, or is he gonna run it like he ran the 10,000 last year and hope that his close is the best? Because those fields aren't bad, Lincoln. Like the 5 and the 10 are going to be deep. We brought up a lot of the names. You got to put Mo Farah in there as well, just because all the medals he's won, and also because Cheptegei is now talking trash to Mo Farah before World Half Marathon Championships. I don't know if you saw that, but that's going to wake him up a little bit. How do you think Mo took that comment?
Yeah, I would think he took it as the Michael Jordan, and I took that personally. We can make the meme with Mo Farah. I didn't actually hear him say that. I would love to actually see the video or the audio, and just of why, sometimes we take that, and obviously the words came off very much as, I guess Mo Farah is just avoiding me. I mean, it kind of came off like that. Well, those weren't the exact words, but that's the way it came off.
Got the
like,
words.
I'm disappointed he's not here. Like, go ahead.
Quote, I thought we would have a more exciting field, which in retrospect, that quote doesn't age very well. Of course, we have the Kenyans, we have the Ethiopians, but I was still surprised, and I'm still surprised why Mo Farah is not part of the field. It's quite really ridiculous that he's not in the field.
Yeah, that doesn't, yikes. Kevin, that is bulletin board material for a certain Mo Farah in London. It's quite ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, Mo Farah's run the World Half once, and I think that was probably it for him. I mean, it's not,
It is funny that we're talking trash over who signs up for the World Half Marathon Championships.
The pandemic in Poland.
Well, even still, you know how you get out of running a World Half Marathon Championships? You say, I'm not a half marathon runner because it's not a real championship distance.
It's not a real distance. Yeah. I'm not sure what he was going for there. I mean, we could talk about like the English as a second language type of a thing. I don't necessarily think that was it. Maybe he really
genuinely was just generally trying to trash Mo Farah
Not really sure. Maybe trying to psych him out a little bit. And in either case, I think Mo Farah was satisfied with the result at the World Half from his couch in London. He probably says, "Yes, I'll take that. I'll take that result, a fourth place finish." Because yeah, Cheptegei, I do like his confidence though, regardless of the fact that he got beat. I like where his confidence was at. They were saying on the broadcast that, Cheptegei's team coming into the 10,000 world record was like wholly confident that he was going to break the mark. So I think him and his group have a certain swagger about him that is earned. And I don't necessarily think this will, cause him to scale that confidence back just because he lost at a world half.
I like it.
All those guys are very, very good, but I think the track is very clearly his domain. And because he got beat by Jacob Kiplimo, Kibiwat Candy, and the Ethiopian guy does not mean all of a sudden that Ronix Kipruto is back in play or that Yamif Kajelka is back in play or Jakob Ingebrigtsen's any closer to him. Those guys are different. And the 5,000 is still very much, his race. I mean, would we have obviously Cheptegei's a different case, but if Mo Ahmed would have hopped in this race, a guy who ran 12:47 in this world half would, and I know he's not the 10,000 meter runner that Cheptegei is, but if Mo Ahmed would have hopped in this world half, I don't think we would have been like, well, podium or bust. No, if the top 5 finish would have been spectacular for him. I know that I'm trying to backpedal from my take. I understand some people are going to view it as that because I said he would dominate. He didn't, and I was wrong, and I can eat some crow on that. But this isn't indicative of him like losing his Midas touch. He's still pretty close right now to unbeatable, in my opinion, on the track.
Okay, you're fine. That's fine. All I'm saying is just it elevates Kiplimo because Kiplimo is not a half marathoner either. Kiplimo is a 5 and 10,000 meter.
He might be.
He might be, but next year he's running the Olympics in the 5 and the 10, and I don't think he did specialized training for this. His he ran that 5K in Monaco. I just think Cheptegei obviously is going to be the favorite, but right behind him there's a big group that's snapping right at his heels. And if the race goes a different way, I think it, just like in this race, it opens things up. I mean, if Cheptegei went out, if he had the ability to go out hard, I think he could have dominated, but then on the other side of it, he could have totally blown up and it would have been a first place or 12th place situation. Yeah. And I think he probably made that calculation early on. Hey, this is my first thing. I'm just going to cruise. And these guys are going quick enough. I mean, it's not like they were dawdling out there. I mean, they're running sub 59 minutes. That's fast. We sort of get immune to how quickly those guys are going in half marathon with these times. So you mentioned Mondo earlier, though. Is it over? Is the World Athlete of the Year debate now over?
I think you have to
wait for some more races.
Maybe the Christmas Ultimate Garden Clash. That's when I'll make my decision. No, I think it is over. I think Mondo Duplantis has the award because he's undefeated. And as much as we joked about this was an important race for the Athlete of the Year for Mondo Duplantis, and was he rooting for somebody else? He probably didn't care. He may not even know currently who won the World Half Marathon Championships. But if anyone in his corner is trying to, see what the standings are, what the current projections are for the World Athlete of the Year, they would tell him your chances just got quite a bit higher because you look at a guy who broke. You could say I know we're not going to count the outdoor one, but he broke the indoor and outdoor world record. I know they only have one world record for the pole vault. And then he also had just an absolute crap ton of 6 meter and above clearances that weren't the world record. And we talked last week about where it all stacked up in the IAAF scoring tables. Last week was the IAAF scoring tables week. We're going to leave that in the past, so I won't discuss that. But he's undefeated. Cheptegei's not undefeated now. He competed a lot more. I think you have to give it to Mondo Duplantis, as weird as that is. And I think it would have gone to Cheptegei if he would have won the world half. I think it really did hinge on this race, which is crazy to think. It's just a weird sport, right? When you're talking about a guy who jumps with a stick over a bar against a guy, who's running 13.1 miles. But that's what I think it came down to. And I don't think it would be an outrage if they gave it to Cheptegei, but but it should now go to Mondo Duplantis.
It's crazy that we're in a position where a guy broke the 5,000 and 10,000 meter world record in the same year, and he's not the favorite to get it. I agree with you. You convinced me via IAAF scoring tables last
There
week.
you go.
I do think it is weird. We're comparing apples to Chevy Camaros when we're talking about pole vaulters and distance runners. And then if you want to throw Warholm and Krauser in there, then we have two other completely different events. But just the frequency of competition for Mondo is way above Cheptegei. Cheptegei ran that Monaco road 5K. He ran the Monaco track 5K. He ran the Valencia 10,000, and then he ran this. That was it. So when you have such a small resume and you're going against a guy who's competed like there was no weird season, then you got to win everything. And I think that's a fair bar. And Mondo certainly deserves it, because if you're a pole vault fan, you'd say, well, man, I can't imagine a scenario where a guy would vault what Mondo did and he wouldn't win.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's Krauser people and Warholm people who thought we've put together a resume that any other year would win. And they're 100% right. You go back through, look at history, most of their seasons still hold up, and they would have been able to win World Athlete of the Year in most cases. Do you know who the real victor is here, though? The real victor is the opponents of lights. Because if you hated the pacing lights,
man,
Mondo's not putting lights on he's not putting lights on the bar, Lincoln.
Yeah. No, exactly. There's no such
carbon fiber in those shoes. Actually, I don't know if there's carbon fiber in his shoes. Maybe
in the well, I don't know what's the pole made of. Maybe it has just peppered with carbon fiber. I assume. Yeah. Fiberglass. There you go. Yeah. The irony, or the thing that's interesting, is if he would not have run this race, if he would have just like pulled a Bekele and dropped out like 2 days before, he probably would have. I mean, he would have had a better shot. It seems like. Now, maybe the people who select this award are looking at it differently than we are, and it shouldn't be the case. But I think he would have had truthfully a stronger case if he would have gotten fourth, which is crazy because fourth is not bad at all. It's very strong showing if you take it out of the expectations we had for him. But of course, when you run as fast as he did on the track, the expectations were incredibly high. I'd be curious how much these guys care, and it changes on an athlete per athlete basis. I'd be curious how much they care about the Athlete of the Year trophy. I mean, it's a pretty big deal when you talk about the athlete of track and field, and I'm sure there's bonuses written in, and there's money associated with it. So there's care on that end. But I would be interested to know like Mondo, who's kind of like a guy, at least in press conferences, who's like, he's kind of relaxed and doesn't seem to be like interested in all the like outside stuff other than competing and jumping higher and higher and higher. I'd be interested to know how much he cares about Athlete of the Year trophy. And then the same with Chep, the guy who obviously it's got bigger sights ahead of him than just winning a best track and field athlete. He's trying to like stamp his legacy as one of the best distance runners ever. So I'm curious what they think of this. If they know, if they're kind of familiar with the fact that we're competing, this distance runner and the pole vaulter are kind of up for us, because we're like so hyper focused on all this stuff. But I don't know if they are at the same level. I assume, this is track and field's MVP award. It's a big deal in the NBA. It's a big deal in the MLB. I would think these guys are the same way, but you never know. Who's on your third team ballot, by the way? Yeah, you got to be all defense. Sure. I know they need to like put this out to the media. Why doesn't the media vote on this? I'd like a Athlete of the Year vote. They might. They just probably didn't include us. Oh. Is there a track and field writers? I think there is a track and field writers association, right? Yeah. You're not a dues paying member, but I think someone picks it. Or that's an obvious statement. Of course, somebody picks it, but they have a portion of it is fan vote. I think a portion of it is not media, but maybe just World Athletics personnel. They have the dream setup this year on the men's side of things. The women's is going to be a mess. And I don't even know if they're going to have the normal gala in Monaco based on what's been happening. But you have an ideal situation where you have 4 people from, representing 3 different continents on the men's side of things, and representing
the throws, vault, sprint/hurdles, and then distance. You have the diversity that you want in terms of geography and in events. Because I know there's been some years where you're like, wait a minute, how did that person get nominated? And it's like, oh, they didn't have a field event person, or they didn't have a sprinter. That's why they invited Usain Bolt. He should not get this last athlete of the year. That is ridiculous. We're just giving these things to Usain Bolt because it's fun and he shows up at our gala.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Come to think of it, I should have done that more. When I was throwing parties and stuff, I could have been like, hey, cool kid in school, you should come to my party because I'm presenting you with Cool Kid of the Year award, and then guaranteed I get more people at my party. That's a life hack there, folks. I never thought about that.
Good strategy, if a little bit desperate, but that's okay. World Athletics, not ashamed. Earth Sports, not ashamed to just give any award to Usain Bolt just because they can.
By the way, do you know how much Earth Sports has taken off in the common vernacular? Well, not on this podcast, but on the other podcast I do, House of Run, which does not include you. But when we were talking about the name change way back when, I said, hey, my coworker at FloTrack, Lincoln, we were coming up with names, and he started calling Earth Sports. So now we get all these emails where it's like, hey guys, just wondering what you think Earth Sports can do to da-da-da-da-da. And they say it without even a wink and a nod. So it almost just stick. And then now people abbreviate it ES in there. And I'm like, what are they talking about? It's already gone into shorthand. So good job on that. Good job.
I feel good. That's part of my track and field legacy. Maybe shirts can be made that also make fun of their logo. I'm so glad to contribute. That was an obvious thing for me. When I try to make fun of stuff, I always look at things that are very close, and I just world, earth, athletics, sports. We really benefited there from being American, because athletic, like when people in Europe think of athletics, they think, oh, you're talking about track and field. Over here in the States, we think of athletics. That's just another word for sports. Like what? So it was an easy joke to be made. So I'm appreciative that other people are using it, and I'm happy to donate that to the track and field audience en masse. Since we were talking about the World Athlete of the Year, I think an athlete who threw their hat in the ring with a performance this weekend was Paris Jepchirchir with her victory as we transition women's race. Back-to-back women's only world records. A lot of people seem to be obsessed with that. I don't tend to care too much about the women's only versus mixed thing. I kind of am happy to just have one world record, but whatever, as it is, Jepchirchir, real nice races in the world half, and then previously in Prague. Do you think she's put herself in the mix here? She's definitely a finalist, because I think World Athletics is scrapping and clawing to find 4 finalists for this award. Do you feel like she has a shot to win?
Yeah, I think just because the rest of the field hasn't done much, I was going to give it to Latensa Betgidey because she has the world record in the 5,000, which people give more weight to than the women's only half marathon world record. But with Perez Jepchirchir, now she's got the marks, and she's got a major championship title. In this year, a world half counts as a major championship, correct? I mean, she only has two. She's raced 3 times this year. 1 cross country race where she got second, and then these 2 half marathons. So it's not like she's got the racing advantage numbers over Gidey, but she's two is more than 1 in terms of world record performances. But I don't know how much you're going to weight the women's only versus the overall world record.
Yeah, I mean, the 5,000 is more significant as far as the track and field community. That's pretty obvious. I mean, I think even you pulled like 15 like diehard track and field fans, and you ask them on the street, hey, what's the women's only half marathon world record? I mean, even like for example, Jepchirchir said it previously in September. I wouldn't have been able to tell you before this race. That's not something I keep tabs on. Now the overall world record, 64:31 by Ababel Yashana. Yeah, I'm gonna remember that because that's an overall world record, and that's what the world record should be. I don't care if the people she runs next to have testosterone. Like that's the world record. I don't think that's the case. But regardless, Jepchirchir, you can say she broke 2 world records in 2020 and now has
Yeah.
the biggest title, the
Yeah.
one international title of this season to put her name next to. I think you have to obviously put her in the mix as far as athlete of the year. This, Kevin, was a much more, obviously Cheptegei had the attention, and that was an interesting race because of the pedigree of athlete, but I think this race was much more interesting to watch in my opinion. Just you had the falls. It was kind of chippy between the Ethiopians and Kenyans. I thought you saw the Kenyans running real aggressively. I don't want to necessarily put the blame on Jocelyn Cheptegei or Jocelyn Jep Kosgei for that fall with Yashana, but
Oh, I
both
will. She
Jep
clipped her.
Kosgei, yeah, both Jep Kosgei and Jep Chirchir were running really aggressively and not afraid to run really close. You also saw Jep Kosgei, or excuse me, Jep Chirchir. I'm going to keep getting those mixed up. You saw Jep Chirchir kind of keep doing that motion with her arm, like give me space.
Yeah.
But it was really her that was like eliminating that space. She was like just running real close with people. And you have to wonder if that was like a strategy. I know there's no love lost with the Ethiopians and Kenyans when it comes to distance running. They've been going face to face, head to head for whatever, 40 years on the international stage. And obviously previously before that, back in East Africa, but they were not afraid to get real close and to make this a physical race. And that's why you saw Yashana hit the pavement at about 18K. And I tend to think Yashana would have been a factor all the way to the finish line. Obviously, she's a world record holder, but she looked like she was starting to make a move late in the race, and then she hit the pavement, and then it was kind of all over for her. It doesn't mean I think Kenya ran a dirty race, but it was just it played a factor the way they strategized and the way they chose to run this right up on the heels of their competitors.
Yashana was telling her to back off. You could see it before she fell. She'd motioned, hey, so she must have either felt her being too close or got clipped. And then a stride or two later, she's on the ground. It was 100% Jepkosgei's fault. And if this was a 800-meter prelim, they would have advanced both of them to the finals. I don't think it would have been enough to DQ Jepkosgei, but it was still 100% her fault. The other two Ethiopian falls in this race didn't seem to be impacted by anybody else. They just fell on their own accord.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on the aggressive racing from Kenya. Ethiopia, though, got the last laugh here. You know how, for me, these World Half Championships are all about the team race. Women's side of things, 3 hours, 16 minutes, 39 seconds for Ethiopia. Kenya, 3 hours, 18 minutes, 10 seconds. That's a pretty big victory for them. On the men's side of things, it was much closer, with Kenya winning by 15 seconds over Ethiopia, and Uganda 14 seconds behind Ethiopia. So a very close race. Yeah, for the men. The women's race, after those two teams, it was another 10 minutes before Germany came through with 3:28.42. And they were buoyed by Malat Kejeta, who I had not heard of before this.
That was definitely a who.
Yeah,
that was definitely a who moment. She was like a 68-minute performer, and then she all of a sudden runs 65:18. I think the commentators were kind of floored with it as well as anyone would be. I did enjoy on an aside here. It seems like Tim Hutchings would get startled every 5 minutes and be reminded that he needed to talk about the team implications too, because you just want to talk about the race. And and by the way, the team race, and it was just like almost it sounded like it was a joke
for me.
No one,
Thank you, Tim.
No one aside from Kevin is interested in because they were at one point giving us an update on how the Polish women were faring back in sixth. They're competing with Mexico for a top 5 finish. And it's is this a joke? Is this real right now? Come on.
Poland finished 7th.
Okay. Oh, they fell to 7th.
I got a newsflash for you, Lincoln. The U.S. could have got a bronze here for the women. 3:28. They could have done that. They definitely could have done that. Men's side would have been harder because you would have had to have 3 people average under 60 minutes, which would have been hard.
Yeah, that'd be tough. Yeah,
some might say impossible. But for the women, 3:28, they could do 3:28 on that course.
Yeah, you would have thought. I mean, we never send our strongest team, so we couldn't have. But if we theoretically had gotten all the best group together, it would have been certainly a possibility as fast as the race went. You just had to strategize well and not have anybody obviously try to go out with the front group, which I don't think would have been a problem because I don't think we have any half marathoners who can run a 15, 20, 5K on the roads, period, let alone do it in the first 5,000 of a half marathon.
What do you mean? Oh, sure we did. Molly Huddle could do that.
Run 15, 20 in the first 5K of a. Oh,
you said period. She couldn't run it. Period. That means she can't do it at all.
I mean, I'd still think that'd be a tough case. Okay, maybe she could do that. Yeah, I mean, I suppose.
Emily Sisson could run 15-20 in a road 5K. A lot of people can run 15-20 in a road 5K.
Fine, whatever.
Wrong.
It was fast.
Lincoln. Wrong.
It was fast from the gun. It was fast from the gun, and it would have been tough. The U.S. would have had to strategize well. But yes, certainly a possibility. The men, I'm fine with us keeping a team at home. That's great. But the women, yeah, maybe we should have thought about sending a group. You're right.
I'm just saying in retrospect, I don't see Germany as a better half marathon nation than the U.S. for the women or for the men. And there was definitely a huge drop off there. It wouldn't have been a sea change moment because it would have been still well behind Kenya and Ethiopia, the two immovable forces in distance running. Would have been nice to see. Would have been nice to see them out there. I love the course though. It was the fact that it was tightly packed, I thought made it even cooler. If it was just one person running out there by themselves, those narrow spots wouldn't have looked as interesting. That one downhill section that ran into the ocean was pretty cool. I like the fact that they were running. Yeah, they were running essentially on a bike path at one point. It wasn't even a road. I don't think it was that quick of a course. I saw Tim Hutchings afterwards. He was mad because they ran too fast because the course, he said, wasn't that quick, but it's all the shoes, which I know ruined it for you. Did it ruin it for you, Lincoln?
No.
I hate it when people do the sport really well. When I'm watching a sport that I like, I hate it when people do it really well. It just bothers me.
Don't do that, Tim. I mean, you're such a, your commentary is so entertaining to, you just get the real like pop of like English terminology that I don't get to hear over in the States, and it's enjoyable. And then he comes on Twitter and just kind of throws it all in the garbage can. Just come on, man. Just keep those thoughts to yourself. The shoe takes aren't gonna age well. And they said it even on the broadcast, like the times don't matter. Like even if they would have run 62 minutes, like on the women's side, and like destroyed the world record, and very clearly technology would have played a role in that, the time still wouldn't matter. Like it doesn't. It's all about, obviously the conversation would have been about how much they broke the world record by, but it's a championship race. Okay. It's just about who wins. We're not, no one's going to remember that Paris Jepchirchir set the women's only world record at this race. They're not going to remember much about this at all. But they will, theoretically, if you're going to remember something, it's, Paris Jepchirchir got her second title, and then a German woman got second.
Yeah.
I mean, she's originally from Ethiopia, but still, a German woman got second. And then it's unnecessary, I think, to bring that into it. Let's leave that stuff for the major marathons and other road races, if you will. It's just not necessary. I wanted to say about the broadcast, I did enjoy when you talk about that ocean view. They had like a drone out there, I feel like.
Yeah.
It was a really nice
shot. They got that side shot. Yeah, the side.
That was cool.
It looked like a Tinman Elite training montage shot. That's what I saw when it came from the side. It was cool. There has to be some middle ground between baseball fans getting wrapped up in the McGuire Sosa home run chase and no one being like, man, why are they hitting so many more home runs than they used to? And then the other side in running, where anytime something good happens, it's just met with skepticism. We have to find a middle ground of appreciating the performance in a proportionate way and not disparaging it because it's better than what we've seen before.
Well, and I think part of it too, part of the discussion with the shoes a year ago was look at the advantage the Nike athletes have on everybody else. This is unfair. Now you look at it, and the top of the athletes, they're either all Nike or they're Adidas athletes, and Adidas has a super shoe out just the same. Now you can debate the merits of each shoe, which one's better, whatever, but it's an equal playing field now. I think we can pretty much assume that all the athletes in the women's race up front either had the Nike shoe on, or in the case of Jepchirchir, again, who won the race, she was wearing Adidas. So I don't think it's an equal, and it's not a case of the home run race where everyone's roided up. Like it's not, it's shoes, guys, it's shoes. And so it's an equal playing field. And so we had a race. I don't know. I mean, like, did that really ruin it for, like, imagine Joe Buck getting on Twitter and just saying, you know what, that was a great World Series, but the fact that there were 19 home runs in the last 3 games combined, that kind of ruined it for me. No, I think Fox would be like, who's this joker that we're putting on the air here? Let's get somebody who's not having these horrible takes. I just think Tim Hutchings, I think, great on the mic, and I love listening to him. Like, stop. You don't have to impress your English buddies who write for the Daily Mail with your that you're woke on the shoe takes. Stop. Just enjoy the races. It's just
I didn't even notice that she was Adidas, to be honest, until you said that, and I was looking up the finish image. Yeah, no, she is right. Before it was Nike is at this huge advantage. And now that that's gone, because we see other companies rolling out the shoes and other athletes being able to perform, now it's, well, now times don't mean anything. History is obliterated. And as we've talked about, I think you and I talked about this with the lights when you basically insulted all the Let's Net G'day fans out there. It's if your argument then boils down to previous times are going to mean less, I think that is a much less compelling argument that they're in the present day a uneven playing field.
Well,
and go losing the argument at that point.
If there's one thing I want to maintain the purity of, it's the women's only half marathon times from yesteryear of the 90s of my youth. No, who gives a this will be my first time cussing on this podcast. Who gives a shit about the times?
Whoa, Alon,
in half marathon?
Cut his mic.
Previously, yeah. No, I think Gordon's dropped the F word on this podcast before.
He does it all the time.
Yeah.
Gordon does it like in the first 5 minutes of every episode. It's really weird. I don't know.
We need to put it.
It's like a stride out for him. He just does it to test his vocal cords to see if they work.
I just think that's, and I'll look at Tim's Twitter after this to get a full grasp of it. But he's obviously got a history of this. Again, love his work on the microphone. Don't love his work with his fingers. That's where I stand on the old Tim Hutchings case. It's just interesting. You don't really see that from other commentators, and it's not like it's not like a stick to sports argument or like commentators can't also have their own opinions, but you just don't necessarily see that in other sports where technology or the so-called changes to the game really influence the way they think of it or speak about it. Like I mentioned the Joe Buck thing. You don't like home runs have spiked as they think the balls are different than they were previously in baseball. You don't see him being like, this has ruined the thing for me. It's just,
that's
cares?
what
that's what I'm. This is the era we're in. Like, who cares? This is the era we're in.
There needs to be a line between just like straight up boosterism, right, and uncritical thinking. And then also it's a weird spot of everything is shadowy. Here's the original tweet, and there's a whole bunch of responses to it. He says, so 59% of men and 66% of women in Guinea's fabulous World Athletics Half Marathon Championships on October 17th, set personal bests on, in optimal speed terms, a good but not very fast 4-lap circuit. Yes, we can celebrate the awesome racing, but why, all caps, this continued denial of the shoes?
I wouldn't say it's a denial of the shoes. And first off, the course, yeah, there were some turns, but there were downhill portions. Otherwise, it was flat. Also, we just don't run a ton of half marathons. Even the best people, when they run it, I mean, it seemed like a good day. It was optimal racing weather. And of course, yeah, the shoes had something to do with it, I suppose, just as in any new pair of shoes. I just don't look at it at this massive step forward in like all of a sudden it's ruining the sport. I just don't believe that. I don't think it's authentic when people say that. Is it truthfully ruining the sport for you? Is it taking away from what you've previously seen? I don't know how that.
But that's a weird part. Well, because then you're just arguing personal preference, though, right? Then we're getting away from like the science and how much does it help this person and that person, because then it's just devolved into, well, I don't like it and it ruins my experience viewing the sport. And it's fine for someone to have that opinion if they want to have that opinion. And I don't think you're ever going to be able to convince them otherwise. I just remember we've heard this so many times about so many different issues in track and field. Remember Kipchoge the first time going for a sub-2? It wasn't the shoes. It was just like this sort of running and this just blatant time trial and skirting of the rules is going to ruin the sport. And then a million people watched it on Facebook, like more so than any other running event. And everyone's like, well, I guess it didn't ruin the sport. And we could go on and on and on. I don't think it ruins it. That's my personal opinion. But then you're just arguing a preference.
I just feel like in track and field, athletics, whatever you want to call it, there's an inferiority complex as being a sport that's not on par with a major sport in any, in the case of in the UK or wherever, nowhere close to soccer, to football, I should say. And then the US, obviously nowhere close to the major sports. There's an inferiority complex of which we seem to do ourselves self-harm. There's advances in every other sport in a similar regard. It's not like in cycling, they're like, hey, well, we had an idea to make the bike lighter, but I think a lot of people will dislike that on Twitter. So maybe we shouldn't do that. No, every sport's looking to push things forward. And this is the advance in the shoe technology. And if it means people are running faster than they ever have, that's supposed to be a bad thing. I will never understand that. I will never understand that. It's not like, yes, okay, if the biggest consequence is some world records will be broken, guess what? In 20 years, the shoes are going to be even better and probably more world records are going to be broken. Do I really need to drop the records are meant to be broken cliche on you here? It is outrageous. I don't understand. The shoes are within the rules. They're going to be within the rules. The records are going to be broken. People are going to run personal best. But in the end, the best athletes win. Now the shoes are all going to be on a similar playing field. Everyone's going to have carbon in their shoes. Let's stop this. And if the case is that everyone on Team Israel ran a personal best at a half marathon of which they peaked for, oh no. That's just terrible news. Come on, man. Everybody needs to stop
here's another
this.
one. I'll read one more to get you wound up again. He says, I'm not condemning or blaming individual athletes and understand they can't beat them, join them thing, but the shoes should not have been signed off. What's been achieved? A foot race became an arms race, and now that all brands have similar tech, we're back to square one, but with fake PBs.
I feel like he just contradicted his point there with saying that all brands have. Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying. The argument is no longer that the current playing field is imbalanced. That's not the argument.
Yeah.
The argument now is about it ruins the past and it ruins any sort of semblance of continuity, and it makes it, like he said, the times are inflated, fake PBs, and going forward, it may not be. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. But I mean, I'm seeing also in this thread, people are asking, well, what spikes did you race in? Like, weren't there any advances in shoe technology when you were competing? Which, again, obviously, all weather tracks, etc., all these things have helped all athletes. The leap doesn't necessarily, it's not linear. It's not as if there's just the same amount of progress in shoes and tracks every single year and you can control for it. Some eras are going to have bigger jumps in some spots and others are going to have it in other places. And this just happens to be what's happening right now. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying, well, you just can't fix it. Like, once it's out, it's out. But Jared Ward brought up a good point. It's like, if say they just suspended the stack height regulation and you can build them as high as you want, eventually it's going to even out, because obviously if it gets too high, you're going to lose your balance and fall over. But also then it becomes too heavy. So it is going to regulate back that way. And listen, I mean, I agree that they help. The data shows that they help, and you can argue how much it helps, but I'm with you. It doesn't change my enjoyment watching the sport and people compete.
Not at all.
Like,
and it's
like
not even
yeah. If I had to write down, if I had to write down 50 things that impacted my ability to enjoy track and field, and I had to be 100% honest, it would not be on that list. The fact that everybody has faster shoes, do it not. Anyway, that's it.
The biggest thing that impacted my enjoyment of this race was that it took place in the middle of the night here over in the US, so I knew the results before I actually watched it. I mean, that was the biggest thing that took away my enjoyment. But other than that, no, it has nothing
or
to do
the
with
US.
the shoes. I mean,
or
it's
the U.S.
just,
wasn't
it's just,
there, or Mo Farah wasn't there, or there's a lot of other things.
yeah. I mean, it's just, it's too much. We've done this. It's overdone. We've overcooked it. I think we're always going to be looking for a controversy, and yeah, I can ignore it. You know, I'm just surprised people who are way more experienced in the sport are kind of falling for the Twitter warriors arguments and the kind of people, the elitists of us who think that that the shoes have ruined the sport and they're not going to watch it, which I think is disingenuous, as we've discussed, which I know you feel the same. So yeah, it's weird to me. Like I said, enjoy Tim Hutchings, enjoy his work on the microphone. I just continue to be surprised at the way he recaps these races on Twitters that he calls. I mean, might as well just call it like that. Might as well just, just say, well, there's Skeptic Guide to the lead.
Farcical.
We obviously know that is a complete fraud move because of the shoes he's wearing. I mean, you might as well just call it like that if that's going to be the case. I mean, just don't hide behind it.
I'm looking forward to your return to the mic. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
I hope you do
yeah,
the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So we look down in place in 48th place, and this athlete ran in Chuck Taylor's. So they're the real winner here because they didn't cheat because they had foam and carbon fiber. All right.
We'll leave it there. FloTrack podcast at gmail.com. Write in, let us know. We got a couple emails. We'll get to them later on this week. We appreciate everybody listening. If you want to listen to the audio version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and the video, flotrack.org/FloTrack podcast. Until next time.